Chapter 9. Darkness, Darkness and Dreams. Dream logic tangled its own shreds and chips of reality and magic. For 6 weeks, Daniel Grant dreamed, or didn't dream, but in the overpowering darkness, the dreams were all he knew. Mobius strips of dreams, jump cuts, swirls of victory and laughter and glory. The depths of the past into secret and overpowering fears. Mostly, though, it seemed a short sleep, for the dreams were only brief releases of hypersleep to allow brain function and REM. In the glass case cubicle, embedded like a fly in amber, when the mechanism and gas mix slowly began to gently pry him from his slumber, Daniel Grant only vaguely sensed the springing of the lock mechanism of his case. He clung to his dreams, clung to the darkness, a sleeper drunk on sleep. "Mr. Grant." A gentle female voice. Whose? It was sweet and kind and understanding. The kind of voice his ex-wife used to use in their early love, when he gave himself only to her. She seemed very real now, very much a part of reality in this darkness. "Daniel." Martha. He'd been dating a lot back then, back in the halcyon days of Neo Farm, when he'd first bought it and was working on the beginnings of his empire. She was a model his ad company had hired for commercials. He'd swooped down and never came back up. Not for a long time anyway. Still, to this day, he was not sure why there had been others, years down the road. Old bad habits? Part of the lifestyle he'd loved. Pure stoking of an overblown ego. He wasn't sure, and he wasn't troubled about it. Except for moments like these, upon waking, when he doubted himself, when he felt vulnerable. "It's time to wake up, Mr. Grant." Wake up. Where was he? "We've got a lot to do." That voice. It certainly wasn't Martha's. He realized that now. "So hop to it." It was a hard voice now, a voice used to being obeyed. Grant realized that he was cold. He felt quite naked. Shivering, he raised himself. He pried open his eyes. Peripherally, he saw the overhanging cables and cold metal of the hypersleep chamber. In front of him, crouching, was a good 8 feet worth of talons, bony notched spars, and open, angry jaws. An alien. He screamed, he cringed. Then he scrabbled back, instinctively throwing up his arms in a helpless gesture to protect him from this, the deadliest creature in the known universe. Even as he squirmed, trying to grapple over the side of his hypersleep cubicle, what shreds of his rational mind that still operated realized something. The thing wasn't moving. It was just hovering there, a few feet away. And, come to think of it, couldn't he barely see a bulkhead through the mulky black of its articulated body? A shudder, a zwip of light passed through it. It wasn't real. It was a... From the left, a woman in khaki fatigues stepped, holding a modular control unit. Colonel Koslowski. The beast before him was just a hologram. "Thought you might need to get your juices flowing." She tapped a control and moved the hologram away. "Welcome to the USS Razzia Phase 2. God damn you, Colonel! She raised a dark eyebrow. You want to be part of the gang, don't you, Grant? Just consider this a very mild hazing. You're a member of the fraternity now. He wasn't groggy at all. The adrenaline had managed to kick weeks' worth of sleep dirt out of his head. Still, his heart was racing and he was damned angry. And, what with only a pair of briefs between himself and nakedness, damned near naked. He hopped out of his cubicle, one of 10 spiraled around a central control and supply center. All the Duraplast castings were lifted now, like translucent insect wings. They had obviously let him snooze a while longer than normal. All the other cubicles were empty. "Why am I the last to wake?" he said, getting up and out of the thing, steadying himself on the side. "You seemed real tired when we left, Grant. We all thought you could use a little extra sleep. How far are we from our destination?" "The gravitonic engines are cut off. We've got to use regular impulse engines to cruise among planets. We'll be in orbit around the hive world in 4 days. She smiled. "Are you ready for some action, Mr. Grant?" "It would appear I've already gotten some, Colonel." "What? From Black Fang here?" She smiled. "Just a training hologram. No reason to be embarrassed. Some younger recruits have soiled their skivvies because of Black Fang. Looks like you did pretty much okay." Grant snorted. You have quite a warped sense of humor, Koslowski. I guess we're going to have to talk about that and some other things in a few hours. Right now, I'd like to get some pants on." "Too bad. You look so cute that way." She laughed and started walking away. "Come, boy, come. Fun's over. We've got some work to do." The hollow projection ghosted along beside her as she walked away towards wherever. Grant shuddered. He took a deep breath, got his bearings, and headed off in the direction of the locker room where he'd left his clothing. In the few days aboard the USS Razzia, before he was tucked away in hypersleep, Daniel Grant had had very little time to familiarize himself with the full extent of this very large ship. He'd spent some time overseeing the operations of his scientists, and he'd spent time getting some natural sleep. That was about it. However, he did make sure he remembered where he put his clothes. He wasn't crazy about the immense and metallic coldness of the ship. The liner he'd taken from his home planet had at least catered to some human amenities. It gave some feeling of warmth and sociability. Here, aboard the Razzia, it was just a pure case of military utilitarianism. There was about as much decor inside the ship as on the outside. All in all, Grant was just as happy to snore the time away. What the hell was going on back on Earth now, he wondered. He'd warned his officers to stay inside, to hire security, and to reinforce measures. He'd even had them tender a small payment to Fisk's company. Nonetheless, he couldn't help but wonder. Still, whatever was going on, there was absolutely nothing he could do out here, light years distant in some god-forsaken quadrant of the half-known galaxy. The locker room was down a narrow corridor. Showers, toilets, benches. It looked, smelled, tasted, felt like something out of his high school sports hero's days. Funky, but somehow homey. Oddly comforting. A tall, blond man was in the corner, buckling the belt of his pants. Oddly enough, he was wearing dark glasses. They made him look more like the MacArthur School of Officer than a corporal. "Henriksen, you just get out of cold sleep too, buddy?" The corporal turned and looked at him. "Early this morning. Just finished exercising, sir." "Just kicked my butt out of bed now. Wonder why they kept me down for so long." "Maybe they just wanted things spick and span for you, sir." "You have a first name?" "As I told you before, sir. It's Lars." "Oh, right. That's it. Lars. I tell you what. You can call me Dan." The corporal nodded. "Thanks, Dan." Grant found his locker, racked his brain. His memory coughed up the combination. He twirled the dial back and forth. The lock snapped open. Inside were the civvy scientist greys they'd provided him with, since he hadn't brought along any of his own clothes, and the duds he'd come in were pretty shredded. He put his pants on. "You know," said the corporal, "times like these make me wish I could pop a tab or two of that Xeno-zip you make. Unfortunately, tests have determined that chances are pretty good I'd go berserk even on the regular stuff. Damned skittish metabolism." "Oh well," said Grant paternally. "I'm sure you're a damn fine soldier without it." He grew thoughtful. "I'll tell you, Lars, you must be pretty sick of that colonel of yours." "Colonel Koslowski, our commanding officer. She had a bug hollow waiting for me when I woke up." "No kidding. She must like you then." "Like me? She scared the hell out of me. Said it was some sort of hazing." "Tough. She's pretty tough all right, the colonel is." Grant was surprised. "Come on, we're friends. You don't have to pull that loyalty crap with me. Tell me the truth. You've hated her for months, right?" In a we men gotta stick together tone. Henriksen's face was peculiarly immobile. Behind those shades, his eyes were unreadable. "Mr. Grant, I guess you could say I feel like I've taken you under my wing. You don't know much about the military, and here you are on a military craft. There are things you have to understand about the military. And I guess it's not that much different from business life, maybe even simpler." Grant smiled. "Right. I knew we could be chums." He continued velcroing his suit. "Damned thing. It sure as hell chafed." "I'm a corporal. I haven't been in the Colonial Marine Corps that long, but I have previous military experience." "Exterminating bugs?" "That's not all the military does in this universe, Mr. Grant. Sorry. Dan. Sir." He sighed. "Whatever. At any rate, my point is that it's dog eat dog here. Domination, but in a codified, respectful fashion. I've only served under the colonel since she culled me from the ranks to be on this mission. She's earned my respect." "Oh, but she seems to have some kind of chip on her shoulder. Think she's just trying to make up for not having one between her legs?" "Like I said, Dan, you've got things to learn. There are codes and games. Just like everything in life. You learn the ropes." He shrugged. "Maybe those little attitude snits. Well, I guess you pulled a few of those in your time at Grant Industries." Daniel Grant considered. I suppose I have, in my own charming way. Good point. The Colonel is totally in command, and she treats everyone as an equal. And if she chooses to dump a little extra shit on your ears, a brusque shrug. Well, then like I said, Dan, she must like you. Grant thought about that a moment. Fair enough, Henriksen. That doesn't mean I have to like her, does it? Henriksen put a hand on his new friend's shoulder. Any woman ever treat you like this before? Grant considered. Yes, my wife. And what did you do about it? I divorced the bitch. Henriksen smiled. Well, you'll have to marry the Colonel to do that. I reckon the captain of the ship's got the legal right to do it. Marry? Henriksen, I wonder who's got the more warped sense of humor, you or me? From what you tell me, sounds like the Colonel does. I'll watch for that little hollow trick. She hasn't done that number on me yet. She must not like you, Henriksen. No, I guess not. The corporal gave a farewell nod and started leaving the locker room. You're a lucky man, Lars. We'll see, Dan. We'll see. The big man was gone. Grant sighed. He velcroed his ship shoes and made a pit stop at the head. Next stop, his scientists and his little secret project. That should make him feel back in the saddle again.